I love playing bass. This is the Superbeetle bass from Vox, and I think it looks amazing. It's like one of the most beautiful amps I've ever seen. It's also a really good sounding amp, and I'm surprised by how full and how thick it is, considering how tiny small it is. Look how small it is. It's tiny. In this video, I'm going to play this bass, which is a Rogue bass made in China, some 𝗕𝗏𝗏 copy that I bought a long time ago. I also play this little Squier Classic Vibe P bass as well. So if you're into bass amps and you want to watch a guitar player have some fun playing bass, this could be the video for you. So just like the guitar Superbeetle, the bass Superbeetle has the controls on the top at the back, and there's a gain, which is the preamp, and the volume, which is the master. And as you probably saw, I was backing off the volume as I was increasing the gain because it gets gritty with the gain, it gets quite drivey and quite nice, and I can't wait to put the P bass through it. But with too much volume, it does fart out this cab a little bit. At normal volumes, this cab is absolutely fine, and it's not loud enough to gig with, like in a big rock band style, but it's certainly loud enough to practice with. It's certainly loud enough to take to little rehearsals and maybe little jam sessions, or if you just want something to reinforce some kind of bass instrument, this will do it. It won't do a gig though. We'll talk about that more in a bit. Right, on the top we've got some EQ. We've got a bass knob, we've got a low mids and a high mids, which is really welcome on a bass amp, giving you a bit more control over that frequency there. And then a treble, which is really quite punchy. Like when I was pushing that up, I could really hear that clacking of the pick. And then down here is the compressor, which I've had on most of the time. When I turn it off, I feel the amp lacks a little bit of life, and the compressor kicks in nicely and just rounds everything off. What I haven't touched yet is the fuzz knob. So or fuzz switch. Let's do that. So yes, it has fuzz. It's not the greatest fuzz, but it has fuzz. Let's explore it a little bit more and the rest of the amp with a P bass. This is my Squier Classic Vibe 70s P bass. I have modded it slightly. It's got some 𝗕𝗏𝗁 tuners on it and some quarter-pounder pickups from 𝗬𝗏 and a little bit of foam in there to keep it nice and moist. But no, it's not really there. It's to stop some nasty vibrations behind the bridge. Yeah, let's play this. It's going to be, hopefully, down and dirty. That is dirty. Let's take the gain down a little bit. I'm trying fingers for once. As a guitar player, I usually play with a pick. But yeah, that gain sounds kind of nice. Let's put it about there. Maybe it is a bit too gainy. That's one thing I've noticed. There's a lot of gain difference between there and there. Not so much this time. All right, maybe it's about there. I love this long guitar. You might have noticed also I've got some little black stuff over the blue LED because otherwise it's going to burn your eyes off. So sorry for that, but that's just it. Usually there's a blue LED. Let's try this with fuzz. I think when you put the fuzz on, you need to adjust that that EQ. So let's try a little less slappy. That's better. Compressor off for a moment. Well, it's a bit more lively. Let's try no compressor with fuzz. It's actually louder with the P bass. So I think that Beatles style bass, that 𝗕𝗏𝘁𝗶𝗲𝗍, it's not the greatest pickups in the world, and they start to crunch and distort when I even play more than one note. So this is a lot clearer. Actually might go louder. I still don't think you can gig with this, but I think it might go a lot louder than I expected than with the Beatles bass. Let's back off the gain to try and give it a chance of being clean at this level. That black blue tack stuff is getting in the way of the knob. Come here. Right. Now it's locked on that volume. I don't know how long this video is, but I've lasted from that until now without attempting to slap. Apologies. I did it. I wasn't going to do it. I did it. It does that kind of sound. This is about the level of volume. I'm going to leave my microphone on now. Normally that gets cut out when I play the instrument, but I'll leave it on this time so you can hear me talking, and I'll play so you can kind of roughly gauge how loud that is. So this is me talking, and then this is me playing at the same time. It doesn't sound good, but you can hear it. So over that, I'm really having to raise my voice. You can get it that loud, but I think you get a better sound. Sorry for the blue light. At around that sort of level. Bass playing's getting worse, sorry. I think for me the best setting is with the compressor on, the fuzz off, and the gain around that sort of level, so you get some kind of distortion. It's filling the room. I mean, I've got an SM57 on there, and apparently that's okay for a bass amp. In there is a 10-inch speaker, and earlier on I was really curious. So before I started filming, I took the back off the amp, and as you can see, there's just a regular Vox speaker in there, which seems to be out of the VXBA50 amp, because that's what seems to be written on there, or if that's as far as I remember anyway. But the speaker is not a Celestion. In the guitar amp, there's a Celestion design speaker in there. In here, there's just there's a Vox speaker in there. The thing you're really paying for here is the look, and I've ruined it by taking the head off it and putting it on my desk in front of me, but I promise you, it's there, and it really, really does work. I love playing bass. On the back of the amp, there's a line-out/headphone socket, and it does mute the internal speaker when you plug something in there. So if you're hoping to go line-out to the PA and through the speaker cab itself, you can't do that, which I think is a real negative point, and I really wish that the line-out could be switchable, so you could mute the internal speaker inside if you so wished. That would be useful for having some on-stage sound and sending your bass somewhere else. Now, of course, I guess a lot of bass players, I was going to say most, I don't know that. Some bass players send their bass to the front of house via a DI box before it gets to the amp. I had a listen, and the line out sounds good to great. You could definitely record with that. You could definitely send that to a front of house. But if you did that, you wouldn't be hearing your bass through the cab, because when you do plug in that line out, you do mute the cab. So just to prove it, because on the guitar amp video, someone said that you could half plug in a headphones. It would let the cab run and the line out, and this doesn't do it. So there's a note. There, as soon as I'm connecting that, it is killing out, so it's killing the signal. So it doesn't do that thing if you half plug it in. If I made a mistake there, if you have a workaround, please leave it in the comments. Right, some pros and cons. Number one pro is that I think it looks amazing. This is one of the best looking amps I've played, and indeed it would look great in any living room. I have the guitar version in my living room, and if I was a bass player, I would definitely want that. It is not all about looks. I think it sounds great as well, and I don't care how it's doing it, be it nutube or valve or completely analog, solid state or digital. It sounds good. There's a wonderful mid-range that you can dial in to give you some punch. There's a nice little clack that you can get with a pick, or to remove that clack from a pick with that treble knob. And the bass, the low end, is full and thick without ever being too woofy. That does mean, it being only 50 watts, it's never going to vibrate your trousers off, but it is a great sound on the amp. There's also a wide range of tones. I mean, it has that fuzz switch, which is not brilliant, but it has it, and if you wanted some bass fuzz tones, it does it. Maybe you prefer it. For me, I like something where you can actually mix the fuzz in, so you have a blend knob of clean signal and fuzz. I wish it had that. It doesn't. Speaking of switches, the switches on top to switch the compressor and the fuzz on are really tiny. And if you're one of the more sausage-fingered bass players of the world, then you might have some issues. I've got pretty thick fingers, and I can just get it, but I find myself accidentally hitting the gain knob when I switch them on and off. So, and also, when you have the fuzz on, I think you need to re-EQ to make it sound, for me, a desirable sound. So it's either on or off, and if you're switching, I would leave the compressor on at all times, by the way. I liked it with the compression. There's not too much, so it doesn't just flatten out your sound, it just gives it a bit of reinforcement. What else? Yeah, the line out. I wish you could have the line out and the cab on at the same time. You can't. I've tested it, and as soon as you plug something into that headphone line out socket, it kills the speaker. I wish you could have a little switch where you could switch it to silent practice or silent recording or silent line out or cab and line out. There's no reason that I can think of that it couldn't do that. It just doesn't have the switch to do it, which is a real shame. Price-wise, this needs to be really competitive because there's a lot of amps available for the 400 euros that this is currently selling for. The thing that you're buying here is the look. It's a 60s style Vox amp that sounds great. So if you're on the fence about buying it and you're wondering about the sounds, I think it's perfect. If you want something that's just a bass amp that gives you loud sounds, quiet sounds, and all the sounds, that isn't going to do it. You're buying the looks. That's it. Links in the video description down below. Go and click those if you want more information. I've been Andy, you've been you, and I will see you in another video. Bye-bye.